ladies and gentlemen, the books is in. The books are in. Yep. They in. They're here.
Log in to KofiPaisaTV.com and get Spears of the Mossy Volume 1 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, from Spears the Pen Volume 2 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, Spiritual Combat Volume 3 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, One Night Before Bed by Any Haret Sean Calfunny, Kalawa's Trip to the Motherland by Kofi Paisa, From Cocaine to Consciousness by Any Haret Sean Calfunny, As I Learned, We All Learn by Kofi Paisa. Also, if you want fresh merch, go to our online store, Family Connect Apparel, and get all the brands. Also, get our 54 deck of quiz and educational cards available now on KofiPaisaTV.com.
NTM Hotel, Rennie Sean, welcome in peace. My name is Sean. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to Kofi Paisa TV. I am your boy, Sean P. Any Haret. On the panel, I have with me brother Kofi Paisa TV.com himself. Now, you want to go ahead and say something to the people, man, before we get cracking?
Yeah, man. ETM Hotel, do our cool, do our natural, Fatmo Alafie, Fatmo, Riri, Majuba Iba E Gungun, Majuba Iba E Gungun, Majuba Iba E Ilakba, Majuba Iba E Ilakba, Egungun Kiki, Egungun. I always want to give honor and praise to the ancestors, because without the ancestors, we wouldn't be here. We are our ancestors. Peace to those that's in the chat. Peace to those who will be coming in later, and those who will be viewing this in the archive, man. And peace to I see Brother Damo, man. Peace to Brother Damo. Peace, bro. Peace to Bebo, and peace Lakeisha Dunn.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, peace to bro Dame. I see you in the building. Peace, Keish. Peace to everybody, man. That's rocking out with us today, man. We appreciate everybody that's linking up, man, and showing support. Hopefully, you know what I'm saying, we get some more people in the building before we get started. Before we get it cracking, Kofi, man, anything you got going on that you want the people to know in particular, dealing with anything, the latest news, anything, go ahead. Do your thing. Do your thing, man.
Nah, man, I'm good, man. I ain't got, nothing new.
Okay. You don't want to talk about the cars enough before we get it going, huh?
Nah, well, just go purchase, go to KofiPaisaTV.com. That's code KoFIEPIESIE.com to get those quiz and educational cards. They're available now. We also have some more face cards that are coming pretty soon with a lot of our scholastic scholars, our revolutionaries, and our hometown heroes. So we looking for those cards that's coming real soon. But right now, go get those quiz and educational cards on KofiPaisaTV.com. Appreciate those who supported and already copped those cards, man, and those who already copped the books and the merch, man. We appreciate it. I'm finna share the show now.
All right, so before we get started, man, I just want to thank everybody for supporting the Kofi Paisa research team, the Masa Warrior Clan, the Amara Squad, Dagger Squad, Pseudo Killers, the Magi Archers. Uh, Shoot, I know I'm forgetting some names. Seshu, MBK, all the family members, and all the people affiliated with the family. Thank y'all for supporting. It is Black History Month, and I haven't did a BHM presentation on this channel, so I am back with another Black History channel presentation. Month presentation. So please like the show, drop this in your discords, drop this in your back chats, drop this in your favorite 5 friends list, put this on your Instagram, you know what I'm saying? Post this on your Facebook page, any like pages, and so on and so forth. We are about to get into an incident that transpired in 1946. This is pre-civil rights movement. And this is significant on what we are about to talk about. And I just think that our listening audience and viewers should be very, 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 very uh, fond of this information. So just give me 1 second here and we'll get it crack-a-lacking for y'all. Just trying to get this out.
Yeah, I'm sharing the show now, man. And y'all please like, man, and share the show, man, to people y'all think that may be appreciative of this information, man, my brother about to put down.
All right, so let me see here. Let's get the screen share going on. All right, so I should be on everybody's screen right now. The race riots of Columbia, Tennessee, 1946. This is literally about less than 30 minutes, or I'll say about 35 minutes from the crib. If you know anything about Tennessee or Columbia, Tennessee specifically, they also host what we call a little racist thing called Mule Day. Um, you know what I'm saying? Mule Day, they all party or they line up in the streets. They have little celebrations and ceremonies. They cook good. They do all of these things. You got the white people in their section. You got the black people in their section. You know what I'm saying? People bring all their whips to Mule Day so they can come through flexing. If you got 24s, 32s, or if you just on 20s, you know what I'm saying? But you got a clean ride and all of that. Mule Day be the thing. Now they do have some little, like I said, racial connotations with that, and it goes with the flow. So hold on one second, give me a second here. So I was trying to get the show out. Hopefully we'll get some more people in the building. We get it rocking out. But anyway, the 1946 Columbia race riots. Right, let's deal with it by any red. So today's topic, we're gonna, of course, I always provide a outline. We're gonna deal with my hypothesis definitions, just some clear definitions. So if you see these words appear, you know exactly what I'm referring to. It's only a couple. Of course, I pose the research questions, or I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't have a reason why. And then, of course, intro argument, conclusion, and then we will deal with the sources. And then we'll move on from there. So, also, if you missed the Tennessee streetcar boycott, man, that's on the Massa Warrior Clan. Go over there and watch that. It's not long at all, and then they go on from there. All right, so here's the hypothesis right here. Like most riots in the early 1900s, whites used power and fear to intimidate blacks. We cannot look in the direction of them nor say a word out of line without any type of altercation. I believe the race riot of 1946 was sparked by a false claim by a white woman against a black man, which provoked a mob. Now, I intentionally phrased it that particular way because it's not really that or the latter. It's like reverse. Not really. Well, let me just say it like this. I phrased it like that with an intent to grab you and take you along the path so you can see the similarities of a previous situation and plug this into that. But I just played the race card at the end and twisted it just a bit in my hypothesis because I didn't want to like draw out and kind of lead people on to what possibly it could be. I got to keep you thinking. All right, so my definition, we got racism, which we all should know, also called racialism, the belief that humans may be divided into separate and exclusive biological entities called races. That there is a causal link between inherited physical traits and traits of personality, intellect, morality, and other cultural and behavioral features, and that some races are innately superior to others. Riot, a violent public disorder, public violence, tumult, or disorder. What sparked the race riot of 1946 in Colombia? Was this race riot another case of white privilege? 30 miles south of Franklin and almost 80 years after the Civil War, race tension exploded into a riot that has been considered the start of the modern civil rights movement in the United States. The days, weeks, and months following the initial events on February 25, 1946, left two African American men dead, one injured, others jailed, and an entire portion of Columbia, Tennessee in a state of ruin. In 1946, Columbia, Tennessee was like many other small southern country towns. The county seat of Murray County, Columbia included 3,000 blacks in its population of 8,000. Most of the inhabitants of this South Central Tennessee county farmed for a living, but during World War II, phosphate mining and the chemical industry had expanded and had begun to rival agriculture as a source of income. Murray County had a history of racial violence. In 1925 and 1927, white Murray Countyans had lynched blacks for alleged rapes of white women. The most recent lynchings had occurred in December 1933, when whites in the Glendale area hanged a black teenager arrested on a charge of rape. In 1944 and 45, in Mount Pleasant, black and white chemical workers clashed over wages and working conditions. After World War II, Colombia's black veterans returned to this atmosphere of racism and violence. During the Second World War, blacks all over America had developed a new militancy and invigorated resolve to Jim Crow directly. The new determination was expressed in several ways. Blacks established new civil rights organizations such as the Congress of Racial Equality and older groups such as the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People grew rapidly. The increasing number of black voters in northern cities was preparing a base for future pressure on national political parties. Blacks also expressed their newfound militancy by participation in a Philip Randolph's March on Washington's movement, which pressured President Franklin D. Roosevelt to issue Executive Order 8802 establishing a Fair Employment Practice Commission. Although blacks hoped increased activism in national life would mean changes in civil rights practices, there was widely disparity between actuality and heightened expectation. Discrimination continued in hiring even as the war ended the Depression. Blacks performed capable in the armed forces, but their integration with the white units came only when manpower shortages and a need for efficiency prompted it. Tension between blacks and white soldiers often erupted into full-scale rioting. White resistance to the pressures of the new black militancy caused conflicts to spill over into civilian life. In 1943 alone, there were 242 racial incidents in 47 cities. Although incidents declined in the next 2 years, racial animosity had not abated by the end of World War II. After the war, blacks faced the same restrictions and prejudices that had faced since the beginning of the 20th century. Blacks were determined to change those conditions and to resist violence against themselves. The fight to change the racial structure would not be easy, and it would be a struggle fraught with violence and bloodshed. One of the opening clashes in the conflict occurred in Colombia in the late 1946. On Monday morning, February 25th, Miss Gladys Stevenson and her son James, a World War II veteran, went to the appliance section of Castanet department store on the square to pick up a radio left for repairs. The store had sold Miss Stevenson's radio to another customer. When Miss Stevenson demanded compensation for the oversight, William Fleming, an employee of the store, either struck or cursed Miss Stevenson, and a fight broke out between Fleming and James, Miss Stevenson's son. In the altercation, Fleming was injured when he fell or was pushed through a plate glass window. The police arrested Mrs. Stevenson and her son and charged them with a breach of peace. The Stevensons pled guilty and received a $50 fine. This solution did not satisfy John Fleming, William Fleming's father. He swore out a warrant for the Stevensons, arrested on the charge of assault with intent to commit murder. The Stevensons were arrested again, but were released when a prominent black businessman, Julius Blair, posted bond for them. Throughout the day, crowds of white milled about the square, discussing the fight and circulating rumors of a lynching that night. The rumor spread to the black business district called Mink Slide by whites. Mink Slide was located a block south of the square. Its borders were East 8th, East 9th, Main, and Woodland Street. Afraid of white mob action, a number of Columbia blacks armed themselves and set up lookout posts on the roofs of businesses in the Mink Slide area. Many of those armed men were World War II veterans. To make their position more defensible, the blacks ordered lights turned out in the businesses on the East 8th Street and then shot out all the street lights. The chief of policemen and his patrolmen heard that shooting, drove to the corner of East 8th, and entered the darkened area on foot. Blacks ordered the officers to halt, but the chief and his 3 patrolmen failed to heed the order and were fired upon. All 4 officers were wounded, one seriously. At the county jail, Sheriff J.J. Underwood heard shots and shortly afterward learned what had occurred early in the evening. He had scattered gangs of whites and had reassured blacks in the Mink Slide who feared for their lives. Since the 4 wounded policemen constituted one half of Columbia police force, the sheriff feared he could not control any future disturbance. He had previously requested help from the Tennessee governor, Jim Nance McCord. Now the sheriff hurriedly renewed his efforts to get the governor to send more aid from the Tennessee Highway Patrol. Between 10 p.m. and midnight, highway patrolmen supervised the Tennessee Safety Commission Lynn Bomer arrived in Columbia and surrounded the Mink Slide area. This force raided one home on the East 8th Street, but only other action was to arrest those who tried to escape from the area. Governor McCord also ordered the Tennessee State Guard, the 2nd Brigade, under the command of Brigadier General Jacob McGavick Dickinson, to assist the highway patrol in Columbia. Before the Guard could assemble, a white mob accompanied by several highway patrolmen took a Monsanto Chemical Company bus from the square and drove to headquarters of the 10th Machine Gun and Chemical Company, the base of the State Guard in Columbia. There, the highway patrolmen demanded arms and ammunition, claiming they had been instructed by Safety Commissioner Bomer to deputize and to arm the crowd. When the guardsmen would not arm the group, patrolmen threatened to call Governor McCord and to have him force surrender of the guns. Commissioner Bomer confirmed the claim of the patrolmen, but the guardsmen still refused to turn over arms and the crowd disbanded. When Brig General Dickinson did reach Columbia, he met with the sheriff and Bomer. The three agreed until sufficient guard troops arrived, there would be no attempt to dislodge blacks in Mink Slide. Dickinson informed the group there would be sufficient report by 7 a.m., and the three men decided that the highway patrol aided by the guard would ask blacks to leave the area peacefully at the time. Should the blacks refuse or resist, force would be used as necessary. At approximately 6 a.m., however, the Tennessee Highway Patrol marched into Mink Slide alone and began clearing the area by force. Hearing the shooting, Dickinson immediately ordered the guard to Mink Slide, where it prevented a mob of armed whites from entering the district. By 9 a.m., the patrol operation was over. Not one of the businesses on East 8th was unharmed. Windows was broken, by gunfire interiors were destroyed, and merchandise was scattered on the floors of businesses. After the patrol raid was over, state and local law officials met in Murray County Courthouse. Governor McCord gave orders to search every house in black residential areas for any type of firearms. A force of deputized guardsmen conducted the search in pairs and seized over 300 weapons. After the search, Columbia was quiet, but a curfew was imposed on the town. Under the watchful eye of the guard, Columbia remained peaceful until February 28, when county officials at Murray County Jail began to question black prisoners to learn who was responsible for the shooting of Columbia policemen. Authorities interrogated James Johnson, William Gordon, and Napoleon Stewart. They gave the names of the armed blacks in Mink Slide on the night of February 25th and implemented prominent black businessmen as their leaders. Before anyone else could be interviewed, highway patrolmen came to the jail to identify a person who shot at them during a patrol raid on Mink Slide. The patrolmen picked as their assailants the same three men Murray County authorities had just questioned and brought those men from the jail to the sheriff's office. Two of the accused seized guns and fired from the patrolmen. The patrolmen returned fire, killing two of the black men and injuring the third. Since there were no additional disturbances, the state guard withdrew from Columbia on March the 3rd. If compared to the general pattern of race riots of the first half of the 20th century, the Columbia episode was not a riot. In earlier riots, police authorities were either indifferent to white mob attacks on blacks or they aided in those attacks. In Columbia, local law enforcement acted responsibly as they attempted to calm gangs of blacks and whites. Although 4 policemen exercised poor judgment by entering the darkened Mink Slide area, their purpose was to reassure armed blacks gathered there. County officials demonstrated further responsibility by calling in highway patrol and state guardsmen to forestall future disturbances. Ironically, the very presence of those groups created a clash which reached a violent end. The Tennessee governor sent a patrol and the guards to Columbia, but he gave no orders for unified command of the two. Before the guard arrived, a patroller joined the white mob, had even attempted to arm the mob. The patrol quickly broke agreements on unified action. The patrol stormed through Mink Slide, routing the men left there. Whether they gave blacks a chance to surrender peacefully is unknown. It is reasonably certain, however, that patrolmen needlessly destroyed property. The state guard was the sole power standing between Columbia's blacks and the white mob and patrol. Without the guard's presence, there would have been an even more disastrous conclusion. The patrol clearly overreacted because there had been only 2 minor incidences between blacks and whites. If the guard and patrol had cooperated to calm dispersed white mobs, and if they had protected and reassured blacks who feared for their lives, there would have been no Columbia riot. The entire episode underscored one clarifying deficiency. Tennessee had no plan for stopping civil disturbances. There was no provision for a unified command of the state force. If such contingency plans had existed, the assault on Mink Slide might never have happened. Yet, even if occurred, there would have been discipline procedures to deal with. The Columbia story gained wide publicity in newspapers and magazines. Throughout the days and the months that followed, local and regional newspaper coverage pursued 3 themes. First, the press attempted to assess blame for the riot. Both the Columbian Daily Herald and the Nashville Banner faulted nameless outside agitators with inciting the riot. As civil rights organizations such as NAACP began investigating into the riot, the newspaper's group of outside agitators grew to include communists. The outside agitators, in collusion with certain Columbia blacks, i.e., the fires of calculated conspiracy, joined to disturb peaceful Southern relations. Ironically, the second press theme was support for local and state law enforcement agencies. According to the media, the riot had proven that in post-war years, a strong state guard and highway patrol had cooperated to calm and disperse white mobs, and if they had protected and reassured blacks who feared for their lives played. A third theme, especially in the Daily Herald, was to provide summaries of stories printed by outside magazines and newspapers. At first, the Herald had praise for news coverage, but almost immediately it began to rail at the news services for their blatant misrepresentation of facts. Many of those national newspaper and magazines had gotten their information by sending reporters to the scene of the riot. Many expressed concerns over the future of Black veterans and the treatment they might receive. If Columbia incident were to become the pattern of post-war racial confrontation, not only were Black veterans in danger, but also Black communities as a whole were threatened. Previously, law enforcers had winked at the white citizens who harassed or lynched Black victims, but Columbia was a new departure because the law had become an active participant. Newspaper and magazines played a major role in the bringing Columbia episode to national attention, but civil rights organizations were chiefly responsible for that development. The NAACP provided legal counsel for those arrested on the charges growing out of the riot. The NAACP established the National Committee for Justice in Columbia with Dr. Shannon Tobias and Eleanor Roosevelt as co-chairman. The NAACP also raised funds for the legal defense and for publicity. Other groups such as the Southern Conference for Human Welfare and the National Federation for Constitutional Liberties funneled funds for the Columbia victims through the NAACP committee. While the NAACP was primarily involved in legal defense work, others, such as the Southern Regional Council and the Southern Conference for Human Welfare, investigated Columbia riot and circulated their findings. In their publications, these organizations claimed that law enforcement officials had violated the civil rights of Columbia blacks in 5 ways: destruction of property, mistreatment at the time of arrest, no immediate access to legal counsel, unwarranted arrest and indictments, and unlawful search and seizure. In part, it was these and other charges which spurred United States Attorney General Tom S. Clark to ask a federal grand jury to inquire into Columbia riot. Earlier, Clark had delegated the Federal Bureau of Investigation and U.S. Attorney Horace Frierson, a Columbia native, to investigate the necessity of Justice Department action. Though the FBI's report to Clark was secret, Frierson discovered no violation of civil rights. Under pressure from the civil rights groups, however, Clark authorized the federal grand jury investigation headed by Judge Elmer Davis of Nashville. Under Davis' direction, the grand jury sought the identity of those who destroyed property in Mink Slide and investigated the charges of civil rights organizations that blacks had their civil rights violated. Davis told the jury it must either expose the falsehoods civil rights groups spread about the riot, or it must indict those responsible for the accusations were true. Davis made it virtually impossible for the jury to find anyone responsible for violations of rights. He instructed the jury that it must find willful intent to violate rights before it could return indictments. As a result, the jury responded with feeble report with these findings. There were no irregularities in the arrest of any Colombian blacks. The white mobs who threatened blacks were only unarmed teenagers, and the deaths of 2 blacks in Murray County Jail were justifiable homicide. In short, there had been no violation of civil rights. As for the property damage, blacks had done most of themselves before their arrest, but the identity of those who did the remaining damages was unknown. Furthermore, the jury charged civil rights organizations had increased racial tension with their stories, and if there had been an appropriate federal statute, the jury would have indicted the groups responsible for the publicity. It was obvious from this report that Columbia blacks could not expect federal help. Instead, they must risk their fate to the Maury County courts and to the skill of their defense attorneys. To represent Columbia blacks arrested in connection with the riot, the NAACP employed Maurice Weaver, a white Chattanooga lawyer, and Z. Alexander Luby, a West Indian-born black attorney associated with the NAACP National Legal Committee. These men were to work under the supervision of Thurgood Marshall. Weaver and Luby attempted to secure the release of the imprisoned blacks who had been charged with the offense ranging from drunkenness to attempted murder. Some prisoners were freed on bail quickly, but others gained their release only after hearing habeas corpus petitions brought by Weaver and Luby. The Murray County Circuit Court returned indictments against 31 and 4 whites at the end of its regular session. Circuit Court Judge Joe Ingram scheduled an adjourned term of the court to hear their cases, beginning with the case of 25 defendants charged with attempted murder of 4 Colombian policemen. Since it was necessary to seat a new jury for the trial of the 25, NAACP lawyers filed abandonment pleas for their clients, attempted to get indictments squashed on the grounds of racial discrimination in jury selection. No blacks had been called for the jury duty. When the court convened, defense attorneys presented 223 witnesses to establish biased jury selection. The prosecution countered with testimony that many whites had not been called for the jury duty. Judge Joe Ingram accepted the prosecution argument and ruled that there had been no racial discrimination in the jury selection. He denied the abandonment pleas, but he did agree to hear arguments on the defense motion for change of venue. Citing racial discrimination in public opinion, that conviction was assured. Defense requested removal of the trial to Lawrenceburg. Defense lawyers were confident that Judge Ingram would deny a change of venue to Lawrenceburg because the city was too near to Columbia. In that event, the defense would ask for removal of the trial to Nashville, Tennessee or Franklin, Tennessee sites they preferred. Citing the defense, by surprise, Ingram granted a change of venue and set hearings for jury selection to begin in Lawrenceburg on August 3, 1946. The defense tried desperately to withdraw a change of venue motion and insisted the case should not be sent to Lawrence County because of open racial prejudice there. Ingram ruled against defense arguments. If Ingram's decision had upset the defense attorneys, it caused consternation in Lawrenceburg. The town's mayor charged that to ask Lawrenceburg to wash the dirty clothes of Columbia was unthinkable. The Lawrenceburg Democrat Union questioned Ingram's decision, and the citizen group circulated protest petitions. The Lawrenceburg mayor and 11 other citizens met with the District Attorney General Paul Bumpus, hoping to persuade Bumpus to request the trial to be moved. Attempts to prevent removal of the trial to Lawrenceburg and preliminary hearings for the trial of Columbia defendants began in the city on August 3rd. Judge Ingram denied a second motion for the change of venue. He also denied a defense motion for the continuance because of the illness of Thurgood Marshall. Jury selection began August 10th to avoid the charge of racial discrimination in its selection. 12 blacks were called for the jury duty. The selection process took an unusual twist when Judge Ingram decided that all questions on racial matters must be submitted in advance and then be asked by the bench. Despite careful questioning by defense, the complete jury contained one unusual member, a Tennessee State Guardsman who had been in Columbia during the riot. The prosecution called its first witness September 19th. Several points of contention appeared quickly. Could Columbia police be identified as they walked into a darkened mink slide district? Did they clearly announce themselves as police officers? Did the defendants have guns? Were they in the area at the time of the shooting? Were they determined to defend themselves at all costs? The prosecution could play only 8 to 10 defendants in the area, and it had greatly difficulty placing guns in the hands of 25. The defense countered the prosecution case by producing witnesses who testified that many of the defendants had not been present in Mink Slide at the time of the shooting. Other witnesses told of physical abuse and intimidation by Columbia police and highway patrolmen who used brutality to extract incriminating statements from the defendants while they were in prison. In summation, the defense demonstrated that many Columbia blacks still remembered past lynchings. Because of that frightening memory, blacks had acted in self-defense that February night in Mink Slide. The jury received the case on October 4th, and 2 hours later returned a shocking verdict, shocking at least to prosecution and to Murray County residents for whom conviction was for ordained result. The jury found only 2 of the 25 defendants guilty. The defense immediately announced its intention to file a motion for a new trial for those convicted. Perhaps the verdict should not have been so startling. The very presence of the trial in Lawrenceburg was extremely unpopular, not only because of the threat of adverse publicity, but also because Lawrence accountants felt Columbia should have settled its own dispute. District Attorney Paul Bumpus, by his own admission, was as popular in Lawrenceburg as in Pelcott and the perfume factory. At the very least, the jury found the testimony unconvincing, and they convicted only those men against whom evidence was most damning. Despite the encouraging verdict for the first 25 defendants, several serious remained untried. Since the prosecution believed the conviction of the two defendants in the Lawrenceburg case would be overturned in a higher court, those two defendants were found not guilty without a new trial. The case of Stevenson never came to trial, nor did cases of 4 whites charged with attempted murder and of several blacks charged with carrying weapons for the purpose of going armed. Now, Kennedy and William Pillow, however, did stand trial for shooting a Tennessee highway patrolman during a February 26 raid in the Mink Slide. Pillow was found innocent. Kennedy was found guilty of attempted murder in the first degree. Kennedy appealed his case to the Tennessee Supreme Court, where his sentence was upheld. Kennedy was the only person ever prosecuted on charges originating from the Columbia riot. Although only one man was convicted of a crime committed during Columbia riot, Columbians probably believed they were victorious in saving the Southern racial structure by their assault on Columbia's Black community. That community contained all those elements bringing a new push for civil rights after World War II. Politically active Black leaders and veterans newly returned from war who possessed the determination to defend the Black community against attack. Ironically, white violence against Blacks in Columbia achieved success for civil rights nationwide. As a major incidence of violence, Columbia meant months of national publicity about Southern racial conditions, as well as a spotlight on the issue of violence itself. Along with other atrocities such as lynchings in Monroe, Georgia, July 25, 1946, the Columbia riot pointed out the importance of the federal government's lack of legal authority to prevent or to punish violence against Black citizens. The Columbia episode mobilized many civil rights groups, especially the NAACP, to use increasing Black political power to force President Harry Truman into a stronger pro-civil rights stance. Due to the pressure of Black organizations, the growing political powers of Blacks in northern cities, the up-and-coming 1948 presidential election, and violence against Black citizens, Truman created the President's Committee on Civil Rights. On October 29, 1947, the committee issued its report to secure these rights. It was a broad-ranging account of the state of civil rights, with recommendations for augmenting federal authority to protect them. At the very least, the report, the violent events of 1946 and 47, and Black political pressure forced Truman into a commitment to civil rights, even if that commitment were only in rhetoric. The Columbia incident and the reaction to it were major events of the late 1940s, which helped create a base from which Black organizations gathered strength for the civil rights push of the 50s and 60s. Civil rights had become a national issue. In conclusion, the 1946 race riot of Columbia was sparked by a disrespectful employee at Castanet, one who sold Miss Stevenson's radio, which would then lead to further disrespect of Miss Stevenson for asking for compensation. Then a fight would later pursue in defense of Miss Stevenson by her son. The employee was never reprimanded, just like many whites who have falsely accused Black. However, some good did come out of that riot for Blacks politically, and it showed the power one has when people come together. Although white privilege assumed it would prevail, it failed in the end. Here are my sources. That concludes the presentation. Man, I appreciate everybody tuning in. I know that was a long little 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I think what we're going to do, man, is we're going to end the show right here, come back, and we'll do an after show. We'll follow up and build, and we'll get into some other information with the crew, if the crew decide to do so, whoever want to rock out. And so on that note, I'm going to say Shimim Hotel, depart in peace. And y'all enjoy the rest of the day. Those of you who will join us for the after parties, stay tuned for the notification.
again to KofiPaisaTV.com and get Spears of the Mossy Volume 1 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, from Spears the Pen Volume 2 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, Spiritual Combat Volume 3 by Kofi Paisa Research Team, One Night Before Bed by Any Harret Shun Calfunny, Kalawa's Trip to the Motherland by Kofi Paisa, From Cocaine to Consciousness by Any Harret Shun Calfunny, As I Learned, We All Learn by Kofi Paisa. Also, if you want fresh merch, go to our online store, Family Connect Apparel, and get all the brands. Also, get our 54 deck of quiz and educational cards available now on KofiPaisaTV.com.